guys, welcome to the Aberrant Design Workshop. I've got a piece of big leaf maple burl here that I'm going to use as an example for some CA finishing. I've already gone through and put on 6 coats of CA. I'm using Tight Bond, the medium thickness CA glue here, and I've got 6 coats on. I'm going to put on one more 7th coat so you guys can see how I do it, and then we're going to go through the micro meshing process and polishing. So I take and just rub a little layer onto my cloth, folded 4 times, and I hand turn it 1 time, do a separate bead of glue for each piece if you're doing a 2-barrel pen. Save it. Alrighty, and then I'll come back and I stand about 2 or 3 feet away and give it just 2 light spritzes with accelerator. This is a stick fast accelerator. It doesn't necessarily have to match with the brand of CA you use. I believe it will probably work even better if you match the brands, but as long as you're not spraying too much, it's going to be pretty okay regardless. Okie doke, so now we've got our 7 coats on here. I'm going to let this dry for about a minute and a half maybe before we get started on our micro meshing. Let me grab some plastic bag to cover up the lathe bed so it doesn't get messed up with our water. I just use a little container of water, which I'm going to dump out and get some fresh. Alrighty. So I just sit this bucket of water next to my lathe and get started here. Now I use the 11-piece micro meshing kit from Woodcraft, nothing special. I do 7 layers of CA and get started from there. I dry sand the wood blank before putting any CA on it with 320, 400, 600, and 800, and then I clean that off and clean it with some denatured alcohol to get any dust particles off of there. Just wipe that on a cloth. I use the white cloths from the auto parts store. They seem to work good. I like the white cloths, for me, personally, better than the blue cloth. I've found that the blue cloth, for me, has a bit of a textured pattern in the actual towel material itself, and that texture can sometimes come through onto your piece. So I like the white towels better. They seem to make a little better finish for me. This has a kind of sharp edge right here on this particular blank. So if you got something like that and you're micro meshing it or doing any kind of sanding on it, be very careful with any sharp edges like that, as you'll burn through your finish quickly on something like that before the rest of it will, and then you'll have to start over and re-go here. Alright, so I'm going to get this started. I'm running at 2670 RPMs here. I'm going to start with the first grit. The first grit I believe that this kit has is 800. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I like to dip my hand that has the pad in it, my whole hand in the water, and then I dip my whole left hand in the water as well, and I keep 2 fingers sitting on the blank as I sand it with my pad. And when you do that, these 2 fingers are going to feel when you've gotten through as much texture as this grit is going to get through, or when you go to the next ones, you'll be able to feel when it stops becoming more smooth that you've sanded through all the scratches from the previous grit and it's time to go to the next grit. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get this started and we'll go. Alright, so we finished with our first grit. I believe that was 800, and a very important thing to note when you're using micro mesh, what I found the best thing to do is you're going to have some texture from your towel from when you were laying on your CA coats. The best thing that I've found to get a perfect finish and not have it burn through is to always use your very first micro meshing grit and sand all of the texture away until it's perfectly smooth to the touch. On the very first grit, if you leave any texture after the first grit, you'll never get it out with the rest of them, and then you'll end up burning through your finish trying to do too much with their following grits, and you'll end up having some holes in your finish where you burn all the way through your CA glue. So your very first grit, get through all the texture, and the following grits, all the rest of the micro meshing grits are just used for the purpose of removing the scratches from the previous grit. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and knock the rest of these out. Same thing applies. Get both hands wet, keep 2 fingers up here, always keep your pad moving. And I'm just going to run through the rest of these grits really fast, and then we'll see the end result. If you're doing it right, it doesn't take that long, and I think that the most important thing to doing it right is that you get that texture down with that very first grit, and the rest of them, you know, take no time at all because they're just removing scratches. It will take a long time if you don't get rid of all the texture before you get started with your later grits. If you start off and don't knock it down smooth with the first one, yes, it's going to take you some time, because you're going to be trying to smooth it out, and it won't do it because the rest of the grits are just not aggressive enough. They're not coarse enough. So I'll do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and polish this guy up till it's nice and glassy smooth. I use Hut Ultra Gloss plastic polish. You can get a Woodcraft for, I don't know, 20 bucks or something like that. No, not 20 bucks, $10.99 for this, and I started off with a half of a bottle of this 2.5 years ago, and I've done a couple hundred pins, and I've just now had to buy a new bottle last week, so it lasts a very long time. You only have to put a couple drops on there, and you can go ahead and knock out the polishing too. So here goes the polish. Also, again, I'll do this in real time so you can see how fast it goes. That's one round of polishing done, and it's getting pretty smooth, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with one more round of polishing, and then we'll see what's what. Let's see here. Alrighty. It's getting a lot closer. I'm going to go ahead and hit it one more time and we will see if we can get it finished up in that one last one. This is looking pretty good though. It's very shiny already, but we want to make it really, really nice. This is somebody's Christmas present, and we want to do right by them when we're making this stuff. Now we got it down nice and smooth, glass looking glossy finish, and I like to take a clean section of my cloth here and dip it in some water and rinse off all of any excess, I'm going to actually get a new section of cloth here. Any excess polish on there can make the finish kind of look hazy even if it's in perfectly smooth glass, condition. If you leave any of that polish on there, sometimes it looks like it's actually hazy when it's not. So I like to get a couple drops of water, just kind of dip it in the corner, and run it back and forth on it until it clears off any excess polish. And then it's had a couple of little deep pits in it. Little tiny ones, so I'm going to go ahead and clean those out, make sure there's no polish in them. I left those in there because you're not going to be affected by it while you're writing or anything, but they're just fine. So there we go. I'll get that done, and I'll go ahead one more time and dry it off clean. Go. Alright, see if I can get y'all over here. Zoom you guys out. Let's see if we can get you over here to see the finished product. There you go. Glassy smooth.